Brad Worthley is an accomplished business consultant with over 30 years of business management experience. He's also an internationally acclaimed leadership and customer service expert who has trained hundreds of thousands of people in a wide range of industries throughout the world. Brad started his business career at the age of 20 by opening his first successful business, and has since created and sold 6 other successful businesses in the fields of retail, wholesale, marketing, distribution, employment testing, and consulting. Brad teaches leading corporations how to consistently build and retain customer loyalty by changing their cultures and not just their people. His client list contains small and medium-sized companies, up to some of the largest corporations in the world. Please welcome Mr. Brad Worthley.
Thank you, and welcome to Outstanding Leadership in a Service Culture. There are many managers in the world, but very few great leaders. This CD will help you move from being a manager to a leader, and from a trainer to a coach. The fact you purchased this CD already tells me something about you. You're willing to learn new things. The hardest thing about creating new habits is that we have to sometimes unlearn old habits, and that can be challenging. Just realize before we begin that no matter how much you'd like to change, your brain's going to fight you and try to convince you to revert back to your old ways. In order to help you create positive new habits, I would suggest listening to this CD every 2 weeks for the next 2 months. Stay strong, and remember, being open to new ideas is a universal strength of the truly successful. Whether you know it or not, you're like a conductor. You've got a baton in your hand, and you're moving it. When you're walking the office, your employees are looking at you, they're looking at that baton, and they're looking to see how they're going to behave. If you're moving the baton slow, they're going to respond slow. If you're moving the baton fast that day, they'll respond in like. So they're going to follow your tempo, whether you like it or not. And I want you to hear that word not, because that sometimes will come back and haunt you. I'll give you a story about the tempo. When I was a manager of a clothing store, this is going back 25 years ago, I was about 15 minutes before the store opening. And this is the days when jeans were huge. I worked in this store that just sold thousands and thousands of jeans. So I would have the employees go out and I would have them stack these tables just high with jeans. We had a theory in those days. It was called stack 'em high and watch 'em fly. So I had my people run out there to the front of the store with 10 cases of jeans, open those cases up and try to get those jeans on the table quickly. I noticed, though, at the pace that they were putting those jeans out, that they were never going to get them out in time. I didn't say anything. All I did is I ran out there, said, let me give you guys a hand. I cracked open the cases, and I started moving about twice as fast as they were, putting the jeans out on the table. It didn't take over 3 seconds, and all of a sudden the stock people were going the exact same pace I was going. It was the first time that I finally realized, without even the spoken word, I could change people's behavior, and it was very, very powerful. That was the positive side. So if you're going to ask your people to be great handshakers, make sure that you're a handshaker as well. If you're going to ask them to use the customer's name, you better be very good at it yourself. On the opposite side of it, which I talked about earlier, whether you like it or not, they are watching you. This is also true as well. It can haunt you. I had a company about 18 years ago, and I used to pay my bills like anybody used to at this time. I had about 10 employees. I was a small company, so I used to go down and buy my postage stamps down at the post office, and I'd pay my bills. I would lick it, I would stick it, and I'd put it in the box, and out they would go. Well, one day I went down to one of my friend's businesses. He had a much larger company, had about 20 employees. I was talking to him one day in his office, and I noticed his secretary was out there, and she was putting postage on bills. But she had a machine. She'd take these envelopes, put them inside this machine, and it would go ka-ching. And it would put a ka-ching stamp on it. And she put it over in the out box, and boom, they'd go out the door. I said, that is sweetness. I mean, if you've got to have a big company someday, you got to have a ka-ching machine. So I went down to Pitney Bowes, leased a ka-ching machine, brought it back to my office, put it down on my desk, put my bills in there, bam, ka-ching, things were out the door. It was working beautifully. And it was working so great, I thought, you know what? I'll bring my personal mail from home in here. And I did. Brought my personal bills in, put my ka-ching stamp on it, put it out in the mailbox, and out they went. Well, about a week later, I looked and I saw my secretary. She had her personal bills from home with my ka-ching stamp on it sitting in that outbox. I thought, this isn't good news. But it wasn't a big deal. I like her. A couple of weeks later, I saw other employees' bills in there with my ka-ching stamp on it. And I got to tell you, around Christmas time, it got ugly. Ka-ching, ching, ching, everything was in there. I mean, Christmas cards, you name it, the box was full with my ka-ching stamp on it. I brought them all out. I sat them all down. I said, what are you people thinking? And they said, you do it. I said, yeah, but that's my ka-ching machine. I pay the bills. And they said, we don't care. And I thought, man, you people do not understand the great food chain. Let me explain this for a minute. I am the owner. That's my ka-ching machine. I get to do things that you don't get to. And they looked at me with this look on their face. And I looked back at them and I finally realized they were looking at me as if I was a hypocrite. Yeah, they viewed it as hypocrisy. They did not see the difference. I was an employee. I was a peer in their eyes. And in their eyes, I was not allowed to do things that they were not allowed to do either. It was a great lesson. It wasn't even a year later than that. My wife was pregnant with my son. He was probably 8 weeks before we were due. And I admit it, I was calling home a lot, probably 6 or 8 times a day. Hey, I didn't want anything falling out that I'm unaware of, okay? So I am using the phone a lot. But I noticed that one day I couldn't even get a line out. The lines were all busy. So I walked down through the office and I looked in the offices and I could see all the employees with their feet up on the desk talking to friends and neighbors. I thought, oh my gosh. I brought them back out, sat them down again, and I said, what are you people thinking? And they said, but you do it. I says, hey, my wife's pregnant. And they said, hey, we had nothing to do with that. And that was really good news. But still, they didn't get it. I finally realized that I was going to have to walk the walk and talk the talk. From those early days on, and when I sold my last company, I had 35 employees. They never saw me ever put personal bills through my mail slot or through my ka-ching machine. They never saw me use and make personal telephone calls. I would close my office door, and I even asked my family not to call me at work unless it was an absolute emergency. I needed to emulate the behavior, and I wanted my employees to see that. And authenticity. You need to realize that employees aren't going to believe the message if they don't believe the messenger. You know, it's important to walk the walk and talk the talk, as I mentioned earlier. But you know what? They need to hear sincerity in your message. If you're going to stand in front of your employees and you're going to talk to them about how crucial customer service is and how passionate you are about customer service, they better hear it in your voice. They better see it in your eyes. They better see your body language when you're talking. Your hands are moving. They better see passion. Because if you really think about it, think about the great speakers that you maybe have seen before, maybe Zig Ziglar's or Tony Robbins. Think about when you listened to them speak and you got drawn into their message, what was it that drew you into them? And you're probably going to be able to put it into one word, which is the word passion. So make sure that when you're addressing your people, you've got enthusiasm in your voice and you're dealing with emotion and passion, and they will probably follow. The next area is about focus. See, visionary leaders broadcast a few key messages and focus energy. Now, see, every business should have a key message. If you don't have one for your organization, develop one. And what I mean by a key message is, your key message may be that we're going to begin to exceed our customers' expectations. Every single time, every single customer, exceeding is our goal. Or it might be, you know what, let's start treating customers the way that we personally would like to be treated. That may be your message. Whatever your message is, make sure it is consistent, it is ongoing, the employees hear it on a regular basis, whether it's verbally or whether it's in emails. Make sure they never lose focus of your key message. Also, if you're going to be training employees, make sure, or coaching them, make sure that you do keep focus on certain issues. Let's say, for example, that you want to change 5 behaviors in your office. You want 5 things to be done in your office. Take the first one. Maybe it's like using the words, my pleasure, which we'll talk about later. You want everybody to use the words, my pleasure, anytime they hear the word thank you coming from a customer. What I would highly recommend doing is focus for the next 2 weeks on the words, my pleasure. Let them know it is crucial. We will be doing it with every single customer, every single time. You might even put up a big banner in the lunchroom that says, my pleasure. You might put up a sign in front of each one of their workstations so that the customer can't see it that says, "My pleasure." And we focus on it. We watch them. We sit and we watch the employees work and we listen to them and we make a big issue of it. At the end of that 2 weeks, we let our employees know, "You've done a fabulous job. We're going to continue using the words "my pleasure," but now we're going to move into using the customer's name every single time." And you focus on that for 2 weeks. The goal here is you might have 5 behaviors you want to correct or change. You know what? It's going to take you 10 weeks to change those behaviors. That may seem like a long time to some of you, but at the end of 10 weeks, it's now part of your culture. It's ingrained in your system, and it will stick. Positive attitude. You know, you need to have an attitude. The kind of attitude that says, "Hey, I'm going after Moby Dick, and I'm taking tartar sauce." Are you the kind of person that sees the glass half empty or half full? Do you see problems or do you see opportunities? See, there's going to be many circumstances as a great leader when you're going to be handed something. It's going to make you sweat. Maybe the person, your president of your company or the CEO said, "You know what, we're going to increase our sales by 25%. And you take a big gulp and you go, "Oh my gosh, that's going to be impossible." Never let your employees see you sweat. You know what? It may be challenging, but when you stand in front of your people, you've got to look them in the eyes and you got to say, "You know what? We've got a 25% sales increase we have to meet. Is it going to be challenging? Absolutely. Is it going to require our best effort? Absolutely. Is it going to get done? Absolutely." And that's what they need to hear. Once again, never let them see a sweat. I'd also like you to think about synergy in your organization. Synergy is really about promoting a culture where there's power and success and teamwork. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever seen geese fly in formation. Some of you look up and see geese flying in formation. You thought they flew that way because, hey, that looks bitchin'. Well, that has nothing to do with it. It does look pretty cool, though, however. But for those of you who are into like NASCAR racing, you know what I'm talking about. Geese fly in formation that way because they draft off of each other. When they fly in formation that way, they fly 74% more efficiently. Every so often, you'll see those geese kind of meander out a little bit. You'll see maybe one kind of drift away from the flock a little bit, but you'll see them immediately come back in again. Because when they do step out a little bit like that, they feel resistance. They feel that wind pushing on them, and they pull back into the flock again. What I want you to realize is I want your organization to look very much like that. So you're going to have renegades. Now, I'm not talking about, constructive renegades, the ones that challenge us and make us think. I'm talking about the ones that can be destructive in nature. You'll have renegades that will pull away from the flock sometimes and try to be that renegade. They need to feel resistance. That does not mean you beat them over the head. That means they feel resistance. You let them know that's not part of our culture, and you bring them back in again. See, if everybody is flying together, things work much more efficiently. If you allow renegades in your organization, and what I mean by that is you might have an employee that comes in late every single day, 15 minutes, half hour, doesn't make any difference. But if you're telling all the employees in the company that it's really important to be there on time, but you're allowing one person to not, all the other employees are looking at you now and they're saying, "Wow, this is not cool. This guy is a hypocrite. He's allowing it to occur in part of our organization, but not in the others. He's holding us to a higher standard than somebody else." So it's very, very crucial that everybody in the organization flies together. And what's really cool about geese is if you've ever heard geese honk before, have you ever thought about why they honk? Well, the reason they honk is because every so often, the leader's going to get tired. That leader in the front, he's taking all the headwinds on. He's working really hard for the rest of the organization. But every so often, they do get tired. And whenever you see geese start to honk, what it is they're encouraging the leader. They're telling that goose, "You go, goose. You go, goose." That's maybe not exactly what they're saying, but at least they're encouraging that leader to keep going. And that would be wonderful if you could have your office or your environment where your employees encourage you. Wouldn't that be a great way? And really, there's only 3 types of leaders. There's those who make things happen, there's those who watch things happen, and there's those who wonder, what happened? Have you moved from being a manager to a leader, or from a trainer to a coach? See, outstanding leaders don't ask, "Did my